Hi everyone, and welcome to the Stitch Sessions, and welcome to this month's installment in our Shall We Crochet series. So the first Wednesday of every month, we talk about the project that's related to our series, and this month, in the month of May, our shawl is the Wedding Bells Shawl, and I thought it was appropriate for this time of year, a lot of spring and summer weddings coming up. And the reason why I love this particular project, and I called it the Wedding Bells Shawl, is because of the shape that we created this shawl in. Now, as you may remember, if you've been following along in our series, we are diving into the different shawl shapes that you can create. So this shawl, you might think it's rectangular at first glance, but it's actually I think they call it a rhombus. I'm not sure. I will put a correction up on the screen if that is not correct. So it is longest at the top, but then it tapers down so it's a little bit shorter along the bottom. And if you turn it upside down, it resembles a bell shape. And I thought, to keep in theme with weddings and things like that, I thought this shape was really cool because it would be perfect fit for the theme. And also the way we worked the stitch in this shawl, because we combined the X's and O's stitch with shell stitches to create a little bell motif within the stitch. And I just think it's so pretty, so dainty, and a really, really beautiful way to create a nice a shawl for any occasion, really, but especially if you'd like to create something for a wedding, perhaps a gift for a bride, or if it's your own wedding coming up. And some of you may remember a couple years back, we did the bridal shawl in our 12 Gifts of Crochet series. I believe that was in 2019. We did that crochet series. And that shawl is such a hit. You guys really love that. You've also been really eating up the written pattern to that. So I'll leave a link for that in the description box down below in case you're curious. That was also a very popular shawl. Again, lacy in nature and just lovely and beautiful for springtime or summertime weddings. So I think you're really going to enjoy working with this. So let's just get right to it. Let's get to talking about the materials we're going to need to create our shawl, and let's get stitching it up. Okay, so for this project, I used the Baby Love Baby or Bebe Love Baby yarn, and I really like using this yarn. It's nice and soft. It's a lightweight number 3 yarn, which is perfect for things like finer shawls. Actually, I think this would be beautiful to create some lovely cardigans. And I just really love it. And you'll see this used in a couple of other shawl projects too. So for this comes in a 120 gram skein or 360 meters. And I'm using the color white. I am using 3 skeins of yarn for this project. And you can generally find this at your local Walmart, by the way, okay? Now, they recommend using a 4mm hook for this, but I'm gonna go ahead and use one of my favorite hooks, and that is a 5mm hook, which is also known as an H or a size 8. Sorry, guys, if that is not going into focus. I am trying, but I'll also type it up for you up there on the screen there. Okay, and then as always, you want to make sure you have a pair of scissors and a darning needle on hand to sew in your ends. So let's begin our Wedding Bells shawl. Okay, so before we begin actually crocheting, we need to understand the way we're creating our shawl shape. So traditionally when we have like kind of a triangular shape, you can definitely work it in one of 2 ways. You can either work it from the bottom part or the narrowest part, working your way up, okay, up. I'm not an artist, as you can tell. Or you can start from the widest part and work your way down. Traditionally speaking, I think most people find it easiest to start from the narrow part and work your way up because we're going to be increasing on each side. But because I want the little bell silhouettes to face downward when the bride wears the shawl, for this project we're going to start at the widest side of our shawl, and then with some strategic decreases we're going to work our way down to the narrow portions. So it is supposed to give the silhouette of a bell. So if you turn it upside down, the shawl will actually have a bell-like shape. This would be our kind of anchor there and forming out. But of course, the bride generally wears it this way. And I just want to make sure that our little bell silhouettes actually face the right way. So it doesn't really matter in the general scheme of life, but this is the way I decided to do this shawl. So this is what we're going to start with first, our longest point, and work our way down. Just something to note that I will be mentioning as we work on this. Each row, once we get to the point where we are starting to do our decreases, each row will decrease by 6 stitches. Okay, so this is important to remember. We're going to decrease by 6 stitches for every row. So as I work through it, it'll make a little bit more sense when I go through the numbers with you guys. All right, so here we go. And at the top of the video, I did mention that the length at the longest side of this particular shawl is 72 inches, okay? So what we're gonna do is we're gonna start by placing a slip knot on our hook here, and we're gonna create a really long chain. So I'm gonna start off with my slip knot. And so for me, I'm going to need to chain 327 stitches. Now, if you are using a medium weight 4 yarn, you're probably going to need less. So this is where you want to really pay attention to your gauge and your measurement. So as you go along, if you are using a medium 4 weight yarn, go along and measure your chain length as you go. Something to remember, this is being created using multiples of 3, okay? Now, if you deviate from what I'm doing with the yarn weight, you will need to remember that you need to do this in multiples of 3, and then you will need to add an extra 3 stitches to the end, okay? So let's say you do 300 as an example, then you will need to do 300 plus an additional 3. Now I happen to be doing 327 stitches, and that's because I actually will have 324 stitches I'm going to be working with, plus I added an additional 3 at the end. So this is going to be a very long chain. And if you're a tight crocheter, remember, go up a hook size, okay? So I'm going to begin by chaining 327 chains, and then I will meet back up with you to begin row number 1. Okay, I have completed my 327 chains. So you're going to have quite a long chain. So you can see mine's quite long. And so now we're ready to begin row number 1. And so what I'm going to do is I am actually going to work into the back bumps of this chain. So when you're facing the front of your chains, you can see those V-like loops. That's the front of the chain. And when you turn it over, you can see there are little back loops there. And these are commonly called the back bumps. Some people call them the back bar. And that is what I'm going to work into. Now, if you find that kind of really too much to handle right now, just go directly into the stitch in the front. I am choosing to do it this way because this is going to be kind of one of the finished edges. That's why I like sometimes to go into the back bumps, because it just gives it a nice finessed finished look. So what we're going to do now is we're going to find the second chain from the hook. Remember, the loop on the hook never counts as one. So we have 1, 2, and into that chain, what we're going to do is we're going to place a half double crochet. So like I said, I'm going to turn mine over because I'm going to work into the back bumps. So I'm just going to yarn over, and then I'm just going to help that along to go into that back bump there. And this is what I mean, like it takes a little bit of patience, and when you have 300 and some odd chains to work through, it may be a little bit trying. Okay, so there's 3 loops, you yarn over and pull through all 3. And for row 1, this is what you're going to do for every single chain. Okay, so it's going to take you a little while. So just press pause, do this all the way down, and then I will meet you when you come to the end of row 1. So you can see a little bit there that the front of the chains are staying nice and smooth. Okay, 1 half double crochet into each stitch, and I'll meet you back here for row number 2. Okay, so I have completed row 1 and my row is looking nice and even like that. You can see how the bottoms of the stitches look very uniform compared to the top as well because I worked into those back bumps. So now going on to row number 2, for row 2 and 3, we're just simply going to do a repeat of row 1. The difference is we're going to be working into the back loops only. So for row number 2, what you're going to do is you are going to chain 2 and then turn your work. We're going to be working half double crochets again. So you're going to yarn over and into the very next stitch. So you're not going to go into the first stitch here because that is the base of your chain 2. That will count as a stitch. We're just going to turn our work, and into the following stitch you're going to work into the back loop. So normally you'd work into the full stitch just like that, but we're going to go into the back loop here like that. And you'll pull through and resolve your half double crochet as usual, just like that. Okay, don't worry, it's going to stretch a little bit in the beginning. As you work more stitches and more rows, that will relax. So again, yarn over and into the back loop only. You'll insert your hook and resolve your half double crochet stitch. I'm going to do a couple more here. Back loop and pull through and back loop again. So that is what you're going to do all the way down and should be fairly easy. So I'm just going to take that out. So once your work relaxes a little bit, you can see by working into the back loops, it actually pushes the front loops along with the bottom loops forward to create a pretty little ridge effect there. And it just gives it a nice added texture. So that's all we're gonna do. So you're gonna do that for row 2. You will chain 2, turn your work, and repeat that again for row number 3. And once you're done that, I'm gonna meet up with you to take you through row number 4. So I finished row 3. So now I have a strip that looks like this. So you can see this is where the ribbing is on this side, and then where it is on that side. It's very subtle. And so now we're going to begin our X's and O's stitch pattern. And we're going to be working this using the triple crochet. So for row number 4, we're going to begin by chaining 4. 2, 3, and 4. Okay, so this will count as the height of a triple crochet stitch. We're then going to skip the next 2 stitches, 1 and 2, and then into this third stitch we're going to place a triple crochet. So you're going to yarn over your hook twice, and into that full stitch, we're not going to go into the back loops, you're going to insert your hook, pull up a loop, so you're going to have 4 loops on your hook, and then you're going to yarn over, pull through the first 2 only. You'll have 3 loops left. Yarn over, pull through the next 2. Oops. You'll have 2 loops left, and then yarn over and pull through the last 2. So you have something that looks like this. Now don't worry that this chain is leaning over. That's going to fix itself as we work the rest of the stitch and subsequent rows. You are then going to chain 1, and you're going to go back 2 stitches, 1, 2, and into that stitch you're going to place a triple crochet again. So here's what we're going to do. You're going to yarn over twice, and now you're going to come in front of this one that we just created, but nestle your hook in behind that stitch. So you're going to come in from the back, and sometimes I just need to turn my work a little bit, and I'm going to resolve that double crochet stitch. So I'm going to pull through the first 2. First one's always tricky of the row. Then the next 2 stitches, and then the last 2 stitches. So this is what creates that X. I'm just going to take this out here so you can see. It's going to feel like, oh my goodness, what is that? Right? So we're just going to straighten it out. So remember that this chain 4 counts as a triple crochet. So now when we pull it properly like that, you can definitely see your X stitch. And that is what we're going to do across this row. So for row number 4, we're creating our X's. So now what we're going to do is we are going to skip the next 2 stitches, 1, 2, and into the third. You're going to yarn over twice and place that triple crochet there. So the triples always, you're pulling through 2 loops 3 times, if that makes sense. We do have a separate tutorial on how to create the triple crochet stitch. And if you'd like to reference that, we'll leave a link for it in the description box down below. So there's that first post. So it's going to lean a little bit this way. Then you're going to chain 1 to create a little spacer there. Then you will yarn over again twice and go back 2 stitches, 1, 2, sneak in behind and create that second triple crochet to complete your X motif. Okay, so you have something that looks like that. I'll do it one more time. So 1, 2 wraps. I'm going to skip the next 2 stitches, 1 and 2, and into that third we are going to place a triple crochet. Once, twice, 3 times, chain 1, not too tightly, remember, and then triple crochet, go back 2 stitches, sneak in from behind, and triple crochet. Just like that. There you go. So now you can really see the X's effect, and it creates that really pretty lacy stitch. And this is actually going to be the top part of our little bell-like motif, which you'll see in the next row. So for now, you're going to complete row number 4, creating your X's and O's, we call it. So there are the X's and the O's are the space. And you're going to do that all the way until, so you're going to have a little while here for this row, all the way until you hit the end. I will meet up with you at the very end because you should have 1 stitch left over, and it's most likely going to be the top of that chain 2 at the end there. Okay, so I finished row number 4. So I have something that looks like this, got a little bit of a lacy effect. So from here on out, we are going to always decrease with every row except for the X's row, okay? So for row number 5, we are going to use double crochets, and we're going to do shell stitches, and we're going to work them into the spaces here, except for the beginning and the end. So I'll show you what I mean. So for row number 5, you're going to chain 3, 1, 2, and 3. You'll turn your work, and you're going to place a shell into every space here. Except for the first space, you are going to place 2 double crochets. Okay, so a shell is normally 3 double crochets. So we're only going to place 2 in the very first space and in the very last space. And what that does is that decreases the number of stitches by 1 on each end. Okay, so then into the next space, right on top of the X, we're going to place a shell, which is 3 double crochets. So we have 1, 2, and 3. So your shell looks like that. So it looks very similar, but we just decreased by 1 stitch. And so the idea is, when you wear the shawl this way, these look like little bells, and the X's look like the handle of the bell, okay? So another long row. This one has a decrease at the beginning and at the end. So when you come to your last space or your last X all the way over here, you're going to place only 2 double crochets here, and then you're going to find the top of your chain 4 and you're going to place 1 double crochet. So row number 5 will have a decrease at the beginning and at the end. So go ahead and do that, and then you're pretty much done your repeat pattern. And I'll explain to you what will happen after this row to give you the length of the shawl you desire. Okay, so I've just completed a row number 5 and my work is looking like this. And like I said, in the very last space, I only did 2 double crochets, and then I did my last double crochet into the top of that chain 4. So remember, we are wanting to decrease by 1 stitch on each end. So now this is the set pattern for the rest of your shawl. So what we're going to do from here on out, we are going to now repeat rows 2 through 5. But from now on, we are going to decrease at the end of every row from here on out, except for our X's and O's row. So we've decreased on the shell row. So now we're going to go back to row number 2, which is half double crochet stitches. And we are always going to start that with chain 1. And then you're going to turn your work. So why we're starting with chain 1, whoops, got quite a long little stretch here, is because we are going to decrease into the first 2 stitches. So we're going to decrease these 2 together. And then of course at the end, we're going to decrease as well. So the chain 1 won't really count as anything. You're going to yarn over, and we are going to work into the back loops like we did before. So I'm just going to turn this so you can see. I'm going to insert into that very first stitch, pull up a loop. Now some people would yarn over again when they're doing this using a half double crochet, but I'm not going to. It's just a personal preference. So then I'm going to go directly into the next stitch and insert into the back loop again and pull up a loop. So I'm going to have 4 loops on my hook. See, these 2 stitches are now engaged. I'm going to yarn over and pull through all of them. So 2 stitches have now become 1. And now for the rest of the row, I'm just going to continue placing 1 half double into each stitch into the back loops only. So this is now repeating a row number 2. Okay. And I'm going to keep doing this all the way down to the end of my row. And when I have 2 stitches left, I'm going to stitch those last 2 together. So again, that's going to decrease the number of stitches. And you can already see it's kind of starting to slant inward, okay? So, and by the way, at the end of my 5th row, I had 324 stitches because remember, I decreased on each end. So we went down from 326. So that was the first time we decreased. Now we're going to decrease with every row. Okay. So the next row, which is row 6, is going to go down to 322 stitches. And then the next row will go down to 320 stitches, and so on and so on. So that is going to be the repeat. You're going to repeat row number 2, which is half double crochet stitches. You're going to repeat row number 3, which is also half double crochet stitches. And then you're ready to go on to your X's and O's again. And that's going to be row number 4. Row number 4 never gets a decrease because remember, we need a specific number of stitches to create our X's. And then row number 5 will be your shells. And remember, the very first shell after the post is only going to get 2 stitches, and that will be considered your decrease at the beginning and at the end, okay? So this is part of the reason why we decrease the shell row and we decrease 2 more rows after that, because every 3 rows, we're going to get the proper number of stitches so that we're able to create our X's and O's stitch, because they have to be done in multiples of 3. So hopefully that all makes sense. Repeat rows 2 through 5, and now with the decreases in the appropriate spots. And you're going to keep doing that until you get the desired length of your shawl. So I'm going to go ahead and create mine, and then I'll be back to show you the length of my shawl. So feel free to pause the video, go back, watch any parts that you need clarification on, and I will leave timestamps for rows 1 through 5 with a couple little notes on the decreases. And so you're now off to the races. This will probably take you a little while because, as you can see, it's quite a long project. And then once I've finished my desired length and that nice bell-like shape, I'll come back and show you what my shawl will look like. And here we have it. The shawl is complete. Now I've repeated my repeat a total of 16 times. So that's going to give me a total of 81 rows. And as you can see, the little bell-shaped detail came out so pretty. I've had to fold it, of course, because it is so long. It does measure 72 inches in length. And so my width is measuring about 22 inches, which is approximately 58 centimeters in width. And I'm really happy with it. You could have made it a little bit longer, but I felt it was going to become a little too overwhelming for what I was aiming for. And so there you have it, the Wedding Bells Shawl. And this actually would make a lovely Mother's Day gift as well when I think about it. And since we're starting the month of May, and it just creates this beautiful, airy, lacy texture. And again, it's just a great way to work your X's and O's stitch and mix it in with some basic patterns. So I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you found it a little easier than you might have thought. And for those of you that crocheted along with me in 2020 when our series was Year of the Bride, I'm sure you will add on a few of those accessories to go with this shawl. Like I have here, I have the bridal fascinator that we made back then, and I'll leave a link for that in the description box down below as well. Now, if you have any questions or if anything wasn't quite clear, you know you can always leave me a question in the comment box down below, or as always, just email me directly at info@crochetcrafty.com. And come and say hi to me. I'm on the socials on Facebook and Instagram at The Stitch Sessions. And please feel free to post any of the pictures of your finished products. I'm always curious to see what colors and colorways you guys choose to do some of these designs. And as always, if you're new here and you liked what you saw, make sure to press that subscribe button so you'll always stay up to date every time I upload a brand new video, which is every Wednesday morning. Now, in the meantime, I hope you guys have an amazing day. Take good care of yourselves. Get out there and enjoy some sunshine. And I will see you guys in next week's session. Take care.